Okay, got about 5 seconds, Charlie.
Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to the 470 launch. Just while we wait for a few more people to come online, Charlie, sing to us.
Hey folks, how's it going? I'll just do a little song for you while you all sort of trickle in. We've got everyone here ready to go for the launch of Linda's book 470, which is very much rooted in the ethics of permaculture. And being a musician, also rooted in the ethics of permaculture, I thought I'd start with a little song about earth care, people care, and fair share. So this one's from our new album. It's about reconnecting to the country where we happen to be. And actually, I'd like to invite you all, while you filter in and while you're having a bit of a groove, to just, in your own way, in whatever way is appropriate to you, acknowledge the country that you're on and send a thought or a prayer or an acknowledgement to the people who have taken care of that country for thousands, tens of thousands of years. So we're here on Jajawarung country in Victoria, southeastern Australia. And I'd just like to acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging. But wherever you are, feel free to put it in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from. Let us know where your country is or your ancestors or any way you'd like to acknowledge that you know, very grounding, rooted part of earth care that we're all aiming for. I want to see myself as a part of the whole. Grow some food for my family food bowl. Stand my ground but give up control. Know the boundaries but tear down all the walls. Won't give up or give in to apathy. Gonna plant a tree, then plant another 3,000. Now's the time to start feeding my soul. Feeding the soil, believing anything is possible. As I get older, some things become clearer. The end of my life is always getting nearer. Focusing on the things that bring meaning. Food, community, love and healing. I'm getting tired of all this moving around. Wanna bring it back home to a simple piece of ground. Been talking about it till my mouth is dumb. But all I wanna do is make a deeper connection with some earth people fair. Yeah, I've been looking for the earth people fair. Well, show me where to find the earth people fair. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wish you could see slightly to my left here. We've got a bit of a permaculture dance party happening here at Melliodora. Stray alien wandering this ancient land. So much of the dream that I still don't understand. Been looking at you, but I'd rather see you and follow the path of that old dark emu. Someday my body's gonna breathe its last. Yeah, I'm aware that this too shall pass. But till then, we'll keep singing to the open air, hoping there's time to advance earth people fair. Earth people fair. Yeah, I've been looking for the earth people fair. Well, show me where to find the earth people fair. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks, folks. All for me. I'll see you later on with another song, but for now, on with the show.
Fantastic. Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Beck.
No worries. So we're at Melliodora. David Holmgren's here.
Hello.
We had a few technical difficulties just running into this, so to have a little dance then was just perfect because it's allowed me to get it all out and we can continue with the launch. Here's Sue Dennett as well.
Hi, everybody.
And we'll go around and do some introductions, but firstly, of course, Linda, and Linda has someone with her.
Hello, I'm in Coffs Harbour
And I have with me Deb Fernando, who's going to do a welcome to country for us in a minute when we've introduced everybody.
Fantastic.
Acknowledgement
Yes,
of
of course,
Country.
Linda is the author of 470 that we're launching today. But also on the line, it's very exciting to have all these Permies in one virtual place. So we've got Starhawk, who's coming to us from the US, who herself has written a fantastic permaculture novel. So it's quite exciting that we've got a couple of them out there now. Well, she's written three actually, but the one that sticks with me is The Fifth Sacred Thing. That was a fantastic read for me. It really opened my eyes to imagination and, you know, permaculture. And we've got Robyn Frances calling in from
Untitled Country.
Fantastic.
Who was also Charlie Mgee's permaculture teacher.
Yep.
Quite some years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, so thank you, Deb. Back to you.
Deb, can you do an acknowledgement of country for us?
I'd just like to, I'm Deb Fernando. I'm a Gamilaroi Bingbool woman from far north New South Wales. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on Gambambia land and acknowledge the elders from past and present across both the three nations that have spoken to Linda. She's written this book, the Dundjalung people, the Gamilaroi people, and the Gambambia people. So yes, I hope you'll enjoy this amazing book and hear how country has spoken to her through this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear. That was beautiful.
And we've got a few things coming in on chat, which is nice. So, just say a couple of words, Dave and Sue and I will, about 470 before we get into the interesting conversations. So this has been put together quite fast, well, very fast by publishing standards, not quite as fast as we'd hope. It's very much a book of the times. We're actually in the middle of our PDC when we got the manuscript. We've got an annual, yearly PDC that's all quite intense, and suddenly this manuscript came through, and if it hadn't had Linda Woodrow's name on, might not have stopped and picked it up, but it did, and I spent my evenings on the PDC actually reading the book when I should have been getting my sleep, so I didn't get to go to morning yoga, but totally gripped and told Davey's got to read it to Sue because Sue was having trouble with her eyes, so they did a nightly reading session of the manuscript. And we decided, yes, we want to do this. So then COVID came along and put another context on it. We thought, yep, we've got to get this out there, but at the same time we were getting Retro Suburbia online out there, so it was all very busy and chaotic, but here we are, we've made it and we're launching. So in terms of Melliodora Publishing, we're really, really thrilled to be putting our first novel out there, and a first novel from a permaculture author who's had her first book in print and inspiring people for over 2 decades, which is quite amazing. So did you want to?
Yeah, well, I sort of thought, oh yeah, we don't do novels. I suppose Melliodora Publishing has come from just being self-publishing of my work, and progressively over the years we've started to publish other books by other authors that can contribute something that's missing perhaps for people's permaculture journeys. And I suppose there had been for myself a bit of a straying into the field of fiction with my own Aussie Street story, and over the years, just recognizing the power of storytelling. But
so that's not straying.
Straying from the sort of factual line of,
yes,
which is really my lineage and disposition, and recognizing the power of storytelling, and of course to see something that was so embedded in permaculture, and yet permaculture is barely mentioned in the book, was a very powerful, captivating thing. And Sue had the same reaction that, yes, we had to publish this.
Yeah, I mean, novels are not it here generally, but we couldn't help ourselves, Linda. It came at a very bad time for us because we were so busy with other things, and that's why we said straight up, no novel, but get it to send it through anyway. And we all fell over and couldn't wait to get it out. So it's great that it's here today in our hands. It feels good, it looks good, and wow, wait till you read it.
Okay, I think we're, throw over to Linda, who might tell us a little bit about the book and maybe read a little.
Hello, can you hear me? Technical things happening now.
Linda, something terrible is happening with your microphone. It's really hard to, it's scratching and
How about this? Is that better?
that's much better.
Much better? Okay, let's see if I can put this.
And maybe
Use-
if everyone else who's not speaking could mute, that would.
Use that little microphone.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully that works. I had this all beautifully set up with a big special microphone and it's the curse of 2020. Nothing, everything you set up, everything you organise doesn't happen. I wanted to talk a little bit because when David and Sue say and Beck say they didn't intend to publish a novel, I didn't really intend to write a novel either. I set out, I was thinking about climate change and I was thinking about how climate science is telling us now that it's locked in, that there's a certain level of change that's going to happen. And we say we believe it, I followed it, and yet I thought, I'm not actively acting as if it's happening. I'm not actively preparing for it. I'm not, where is the disjunction between what I see happening out there in the world and what science tells us is happening? And I started thinking about how would it actually feel? What would it be like to be in that future that scientists tell us is coming? And I started to think, what are the assets? What are the resources? What are the relationships? What are the attitudes that will stand us in good stead for that? And what does it mean? What does it mean in terms of being a human? What does it mean in terms of being a good human? How does it change the experience of being human? And thinking about that, it led me into storytelling. It led me into imagining characters. I don't know where these characters came from. They came into my mind and I started placing them in the kind of futures that I was researching at the same time. What is actually going to happen? And I started placing these characters in it and thinking about how they feel it, how it would feel to be there, how would they react, what would happen, and that led me into novel writing. So that's how 470 came to be. I'm a slow writer. It took me several years of writing with a lot of gardening and walking and thinking and imagining as I went along. That's the 470 story. I might just read you a section out of the book now as a little taster, a little excerpt. This is chapter 21. They're fairly short chapters. So it's about maybe a third of the way through the book. After she cleared the table, Sophie stood looking at the kitchen pantry shelves. They were, she knew, luxuriously well off. The pantry was well stocked just because flooded creek crossings on the road to town were a normal part of summer. There were rows of dry goods all stored in jars to keep the mice out, pearl barley and sultanas and couscous, cinnamon and peppercorns and poppy seeds. She had a jar of cocoa, but not enough sugar or flour to make a cake, half a jar of oats, some semolina, packet of poi lentils, dates, tahini. Kat came up behind her and put her arms around her. resting her chin on Sophie's shoulder. What's wrong? Turn page. Nothing really. Just figuring out what to use and what to save to get us through. It's hard when you don't know what you're budgeting for. Kat answered, let's think long term. We might be lucky, but it might be a long time. Listening to what Dad says, I don't think we can expect anything out of the government at the moment, whoever the government is today. The locals will get the road cleared eventually, though, said Sophie. Yeah, if they can find enough diesel. Sophie shuffled the jars on the shelf. I always thought we were pretty self-sufficient in food, but it's odd trying to think of what I can still make. We're missing one essential ingredient for everything. If I had a crystal ball, I would have gone down to town with you before Ruby and done a bulk shop up. Sophie remembered that Saturday. She'd been in the flow with her new picture book, the orangutans one that she winced to think about now, and afraid her inspiration, always timid and fickle, might desert her. So she'd given Kate a list of essentials and gloried in a whole day alone trying to corral her muses. Kat liked town. Shopping day for her was an opportunity to catch up with people, browse the shops, buy a sausage roll at the bakery, even though their homemade was so much better. Yep, that'll teach you to trust me with the shopping, Kat said. Sophie turned her face, smiling. You're bad at it. You get chatting to someone or find some treasure in the op shop and forget whole shops, and you don't do the maths. Kat met Sophie's eyes and her smile dropped away. We'll be okay, she said. Her voice was resolute. We've got milk and yogurt from the goats, vegetables from the garden, eggs, fruit. Sophie's voice was quieter, a small, brave voice. No flour, no bread or biscuits or cake or pasta, no rice, no sugar, no soy sauce. Cooking oil for another week if we're careful with it. Hardly even any salt left. And we've got spring onions in the garden, but not enough, and about 10 onions left. What can you make with no onions? Yes. And no, Kat answered, and no chocolate, no grain for the animals, no washing powder, no fuel for the slasher. Kat gazed at her gaze level. No toothpaste. I know, Sophie, but we can do without bread or cakes. Next summer we'll plant field corn and make tortillas instead. We can plant a field of buckwheat now. It'll be cool enough soon. It's fast and it makes good porridge. Craig has bees. We can trade him for honey. We can do without onions. And I'll figure out something to do with about the salt. Maybe we'll have to do a trip to the beach. You know, I'm a bit scared, said Sophie. What if it doesn't go back to normal? What do you think I've been fattening up the bush turkeys for all these years, joked Kat, her smile back. We'll live on turkey and cranberry sauce without the cranberries. Seriously, Kat, seriously, we'll be all right. We'll have to get better at keeping the wildlife off the fruit trees, and we'll have to think harder about planting basics in the garden. I'd be a lot more worried if we were coming into summer with no water, or if one of us had a leg in plaster like Amy. But the dam's full, and it'll be cool for a few months. And if this recovery lasts longer than that, we'll have figured out how to deal with it better too. It's a different thing growing salad greens and snow peas to growing staples, said Sophie. We haven't even got seed for half of that. We've been gardening for fun, not with the threat of going hungry if it didn't work out. And I don't know how to make tortillas from corn or anything really with amaranth or cassava. Kat took both Sophie's hands in hers. We can work it out. We're smart and fit and daring, you especially, one foot in front of the other. And don't blame Xana for the flour. I forgot to tell you, but Lee came over yesterday looking to borrow some flour. I gave him a cup. That's okay, said Sophie, smiling and squeezing Kat's hands. I'll go check on Amy and borrow some salt this afternoon. That's the end of that chapter. I guess that leads us into our next bit about the role of imagination in creating change, because I wanted to imagine what it would be like to be facing that fear, what it would feel like. Shall I pass back to you, Beck?
Yeah.
Sure. I think Dave's going to jump in there and have some thoughts.
Yeah, well, I think imagination is so essential in so many ways in thinking about what hazards are coming over the horizon, but also, of course, about the positive possibilities. And of course, in that reading, there was both of those were there. Can't see.
Yeah, there we are.
Sorry about that.
Start again.
Yeah, I was thinking about the role of imagination in bringing about positive change in the world, and imagination is essential for understanding threats that are coming over the horizon that we can't yet see, and there's elements of that in that reading, of course, and understanding the possibilities, the positives. So if we think about that in terms of imagination and permaculture design, imagination has got to be the most fundamental requirement for any design, any sense of creating something that doesn't yet exist, or modifying something, or seeing the emergent potential which is in a situation or in any possibility. So that process of being a designer and seeing the world through that design lens is fed and nourished constantly by imagination. And it's hard to see how one can actually design anything without imagination. So in that sense, I don't think of imagination as of being the complete fanciful, just head spinning off into all sorts of unreal possibilities, though of course that's useful as well for stimulating the thought processes, loosening up, but even being able to see what is not immediately in front of us. And I think that was really at the beginning of permaculture for both me and Bill Mollison, of moving beyond just trying to stop or resist bad things in the world that are very concrete and real and in front of you, to how do we manifest and create the world we want that reflects permaculture ethics, and imagination is absolutely essential to that. So I think in some ways that storytelling is, how could we not see that as very important? And of course, to have someone like Starhawk with us, who's been on that track for a long time, is yeah, very special.
I think focusing in on storytelling, as our ancestors always purveyed their information and so-called education to all those who come after us, is something that I focus on all the time. When I think of acknowledgement to country, and I always think of what the Aborigines do or did in the past, and what richness they still bring, and that brings me down to the basics again, and what's real and what isn't. So I think Starhawk focuses a lot on that, since she's so tied into Native peoples too. Is that so, Starhawk?
Yes, I like to think so. Can you all hear me okay? Good. You know, I wrote a book called The Fifth Sacred Thing, and I guess it's more than 30 years ago now. And for me, part of writing it was just wanting to write something that didn't require footnotes. I had written a nonfiction book called Truth or Dare right before that, and it had one chapter that had 93 footnotes, and I was writing on this little tiny, early computer that didn't even have a hard drive. It just had floppy disks, and every time I'd get to footnote 92, the whole thing would crash. So I was like, I don't want to write any more footnotes for a while. I want something I can research by going out and backpacking in the wilderness, and just started writing these stories. But a lot of it for me was this question, as Linda was saying, about trying to imagine all these ideas I was always like proposing, and all these, you know, sort of values and these political positions and all this sort of political culture I felt I was part of. What would the world look like if we actually won, if we actually put it into practice? And that part was a wonderful experience, to just really do that imagination work and say, well, what would it look like, you know, to walk around San Francisco where I live and, you know, kind of go, well, this building can stay and that one has to go. It's ugly. I don't want it anymore. Right? And what if we got rid of the streets and just turned them all into gardens and just had walking paths and bike paths and, you know, and then of course a novel needs drama. And, you know, a novel that's just a tour of the wonderful future is not, you know, a great, exciting thing to read. So I had to imagine the opposite. You know, there's supposed to be a Native American proverb that says, if we don't change our direction, we're going to wind up where we're headed. And so imagining like where we're going to wind up if we wind up where we're headed, that racist, destructive reality. And so it was pretty easy to put that in Southern California and the good place in Northern California, and then, you know, write a novel about the clash that happens when those systems collide. And the underlying question, you know, for me, a novel always has an underlying question, and it's not that it actually answers that question. Like if you want to answer a question, you write nonfiction, but if you want to just wrestle with a question that has no ultimate answer, a story is a great way to do it. And for me, the story really centered around how do we respond to violence without becoming the system we're fighting against. When Linda sent me her book, you know, I first really connected to Linda. I took my first permaculture design course, I think it was in 96 or 97 with Penny Livingston Stark up in Northern California. And I came home and there was this book that had come in the mail on my desk, and it was Linda's book, The Permaculture Home Garden. And I was like, yes, you know, this is what I need. How do I actually grow things like carrots and lettuces in permaculture, and not just, you know, service berries and odd things I've never heard of, right? And I really was excited by it. One of my neighbors actually did a whole chicken tractor mandala system for quite a while on her model. And she and I began corresponding. She came out and took a course at one point. We met, I think, when I was in Australia some years ago. And when I got her book this time, it was right at the beginning of our lockdown for COVID-19. And so it was like literally within days, I finished teaching a social permaculture course, and the directive came down on the last day of our course that said, you know, starting tomorrow, everybody stays at home. So I was madly dashing around doing things like trying to stock up for groceries, coming up here to my land in Sonoma County, where I decided to self-isolate for 2 weeks, at least. Now it's going on 4 months, but at that time I thought it would be, you know, a few weeks. going to the grocery store, and it was interesting. Within hours of that directive coming down, a few things happened. One was that all the flour in the grocery stores disappeared. Suddenly, everybody bought flour. Everybody started a sourdough starter. And I went to a nursery to find some starts to kind of beef up the garden, and every single vegetable in the nursery was gone. People had, it was like everyone immediately went to, I'm going to garden and bake, right? And that fear of running out. So that passage Linda was reading, all of the book, it seemed so real. I felt like I know those characters so well, like they, any of them could be sitting across the table from me, or, the person I just left who was in my class, or the person who lives down the road. They really resonated as very real people. And the things they were grappling with, seemed so real. Here in Northern California, we've had more than our fair share of fires and floods, and all of the disasters of climate change are already happening here. It's not like something in the future, it's something that we've experienced, as you've been experiencing it in Australia, but I mean, last fall, there was one day last fall where we were preparing our big Halloween ritual for the year, and half of the Bay Area was blacked out because our utility company can't actually get it together to maintain its lines, so it just cuts power when it gets really dangerous conditions. And the whole county practically was evacuated because of a wildfire. It's like, it's already crazy and happening on a scale that is very, very frightening and concerning. So reading the book, on the one hand, it was like, yes, this book really speaks to my condition right now. And the other hand, sometimes I had to just put it down like, oh, this is too real. Like, I can't. Right.
I was wondering, Robyn, how you responded to the book, being someone so embedded deeply in that same bioregion as Linda.
Sorry, I was muted. I'm yet to read it, and I can't wait.
Oh, wow.
I'm looking forward to it, and everything I hear about it, I'm just going, I want to get my hands on this, and I've got to schedule a couple of days, hammock time, serious hammock time, so I can really dive into it. And I've been I'm a little bit of a sort of fantasy sci-fi fan going back many years, and I find so many of them just really bring so much hope, and it's been wonderful finding great novels that have actually referring to permaculture, and you can see the permaculture influence there, and I'm really looking forward to Linda's book, because imagination is critical, for envisaging futures, and people get so, I suppose, their imagination gets suppressed with immediate circumstances, and sometimes it's just really hard to see beyond. And it was interesting, back in the 90s, I was teaching a major PDC in Bali. We had people from all over Indonesia, and it was translated. But one of the participants from traditional Balinese village. He shared something with me at towards the end of the course, and he says, you know, we've got a very wise old woman in Ibu in our village, and she always says to me that the greatest poverty of all is the poverty of the imagination. And I went, wow, that is just so true. And, you know, it's important to spark people's imaginations, you know, and I find that's one of the wonderful things of teaching permaculture. Suddenly people can envisage futures and possibilities that they've never entertained before. You know, after the whole sort of peak oil and stuff in the early noughties, we had a number of conversation cafes here for the wider Nimbin communities, looking at peak oil and climate change and all this sort of stuff. And it just really didn't go anywhere. And so then I thought, no, let's do something different. And so I put together what I called Imagineering, an Imagineering workshop, and a whole series of different processes that we'd do. And look, we were house packed. We had everybody on tables. We went through all sorts of different scenarios, and people came up with some really amazing stuff. And that then actually fed into a whole lot of actions that have happened in our community. And the initial sort of transition workshop things that I facilitated for the Sustainable Nimbin Forum, which then has, you know, given birth to the food security group and our food co-op and our farmers markets and our community-owned power station, solar power station, and I mean, there's just ripples, you know, everywhere. And it was just, you know, it came out of engaging and facilitating people with the space to imagine, where do we want to be in the future, you know, and how can we get there? And it's been really interesting with the bushfire last year. It was a big shock for us. We live in a really high rainfall area with, you know, these ancient rainforests that have never been burnt, you know, in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And suddenly, you know, for the first time in 25 years, we had to be preparing for fire. Usually we're preparing for too much rain. And, you know, the Thunderball Falls Valley was evacuated. Two really large communities, you know, Thunderball Falls community with 250 odd people, and the Young Road community, Sitter Farm, and, you know, and so suddenly the showground right next door was just full of all these people from over the hill. And the way the community pulled together and looked after each other, the way the young people came back, you know, kids that had grown up on these communities back in the 70s and early 80s, took leave from, you know, their jobs in Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane to come home because they knew those forests. They knew them like the back of their hand. That was their playground when they grew up. And they were there to defend those forests from the fire. And it was just amazing. And just how we kept the food going. And then, you know, we just come out of that and boom, you know, there's the pandemic. And it's really, you know, all the steps that we've taken in this community to build our resilience really kept us going. And, you know, most of our food for the last, you know, 5 or 6 years has come from within about a 30, 35 kilometre radius, including our rice and coffee and, you know, important things like that. It's been, you know, so important, not only our personal preparation, but that, you know, building a resilient community that can pull together, and we've got this sort of diversity of skills, and we've got this common vision. It also, you know, I value what has happened too, because it's shown us the gaps, where it's shown us the areas that we're vulnerable in. And so, you know, I'm sort of working on Janbang 2.0 transition at the moment. And, but, you know, it really comes back to imagining, and just, you know, everything works both ways. I think there's a tendency to put on the rose-coloured glasses with a lot of permaculturalists, and not really take heed of the things that can go wrong. And I think, you know, like the disaster, design for disaster is such a critical part of our permaculture course. And I think we need to extend on that, because, you know, we're in a world that is very uncertain and very changeable. And we're going to have more shocks, and each shock will bring its challenges. It will also bring its opportunities. We've just got to, yeah, prepare ourselves, and, you know, with our imagination that can help us get through and make the most of little things.
I think, can you hear me? Yep. Yeah. Couple of things that people have said all the way through that were sparking things to me. When David said right in the very beginning about reality and fiction, and I thought that was one of the things that I was focusing, one of the things that I thought about with 470 right in the beginning was whether it was possible to imagine what it might be like with that kind of dense reality of a novel. You know how when you're deep in a novel, it feels like you're actually there. I don't think you get that with non-fiction. You can get it intellectually, but I don't think you get that sense of being there in a non-fiction book. It takes a novel to take you there. And that's what I was wondering, whether it's possible to imagine that, what it would be like with the dense reality of a novel and still have it real. Like 470 is a realist novel. I did a lot of background research trying to base it very much in not dramatic, not over dramatizing, not cherry picking the science. Just, this is what we're looking at. This is what we're really looking at. How might that feel? Things that Starhawk said in that, you know, that sense of what would it be like to walk into a supermarket and find nothing on the shelves. You know, we've experienced it a bit now with COVID, but I don't think we've really experienced it. Not that sense of there is nothing and it might not come back, not for a very long time. How would that feel? What would that sense, would you get that sense of rising fear? Or would you be in a space where you would go, okay, this is not good, but this is not terrifying either. This is something that we can work through, work with. Blackouts too, that's another thing. You know, we haven't really experienced that yet, but the science tells us that that's what we're going to be looking at, heat waves accompanied by blackouts. And what would that feel like? What would happen then? Things that Robyn was talking about too, that sense of like the two sides of it. There's a term I don't know, I've only ever seen it written, I don't know how you properly pronounce it, but eudaimonia. That's it's a word that means a good life, well lived, with enough material possessions, but not more. So it's that thing of, you don't need to regard a low consumption lifestyle as a deprived lifestyle. If you can envisage it as a fully flowered, a life with that word. And that was, when I took my characters into that space, they're smart people, they're intelligent people. What are they going to be seeking? And they're going to be seeking a good life. They're going to be seeing if they can find a way to make that kind of life within what climate science tells us is coming. So that was where it went, is how would they do that? How would they react first, and then how would they go about trying to create that life? the imagination of watching somebody else do it then allows you to imagine yourself doing it and put yourself in their shoes. And that then takes you out of that frame of, I don't want to look that a lot of people have about climate change because it's too scary, it's too horrible, there's nothing I can do anyway, I don't want to see. And that was where I was going to, is that once you can see people creating a beautiful life, then it's not that it's less scary, but there's more sense of, I have power, I have agency, I can do something, I'm not powerless in this situation. So that's where I think people say about 470 that it is a mixture of, there's hope. And I think that's where that sense of hope comes from.
Hope that was definitely there for me, is this based in reality? Because my mind is always looking for, yeah, but that's unrealistic, or that won't work. And I got swept away in the story, but everywhere I looked, I saw with the areas that I knew a lot about technically, and there were subjects in there to do with herbalism and other things that were actually beyond my expertise. But everywhere I looked, Linda, so yeah, that's as I know it, that's true, that's realistic. And so for me, that was a real test, along with the great hope and the engagement and the drama of the story.
And I have to say that the title was something that really took me. 470 is not 470 parts per million in the atmosphere. It's, for me, 470 ways of converting to a better life now.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you know about climate change or you like it or you think it's a load of rubbish. It doesn't matter about peak oil. But what matters is the community and people. And that's where our resilience lies, and that brings in the imagination of 470. What's that? What's that mean? And the imagination. There's the imagination right there, sparked by that beautiful image done by Maria Pena.
Yes, Maria Pena's picture on the cover art is just beautiful. I love it. I was so pleased.
Okay, before we actually launch, I think if everyone's happy with that, we better leave it there. I know all of you could say way more and it'd be really, really interesting. But in terms of time, it's getting on. So we're going to have a bit of a breather and a bit of a dance, hopefully. I encourage you to get up off whatever you're sitting on right now and actually have a bit of the dance, because we've been sitting down for a while. And then we'll have the actual launch.
The comic relief is back. Well, it's just been really fascinating, listening to everyone's perspective on this. And I realised, through hearing you all speak, that having met pretty much everyone here except for you, Linda, in real life, I just have to say, I have to acknowledge the wisdom in the room, or in the virtual room, and pay my respect to you all, my elders, because as was mentioned, Robyn Frances was my teacher, who I did my first PDC and then Cert 3 in permaculture up at Janbung Gardens nearly 10 years ago. And Starhawk, we met briefly in California, and I've followed your work for a long time. But Linda, I actually owe a lot to you, because the very first permaculture book I ever picked up was your home garden, the permaculture home garden book. And that was what inspired me to go and study with Robyn, and then to go on to write songs about it. So thank you. I'm not sure if you heard that, but thank you, Linda, for getting the ball rolling. And yeah, in the spirit of where do we go from here, I'd just like to offer this song from our first album, Permaculture, A Rhymer's Manual, which of course is the 12 principles from David's book put into song. And this is the last principle of creatively use and respond to change, which I think is more relevant than ever. One thing's for certain, and that's that nothing's for certain. You never know what's around the bend. In whatever you're dealing, just accept what you're feeling. There's no point in believing it will never end, because it's changing, constantly changing in any situation. Well, the only thing that remains the same is change. Like a change in the season, change is there for a reason. Can't stop ourselves from moving around the sun. And there's no point in complaining if it's stormy and raining. You just gotta make an umbrella and go play in the rain with someone, 'cause it's changing, changing, every moment changing, changing. Sometimes there's not much you can do, sometimes there is, but no matter who you are, you've just got to be cool with change. Well, change is there, make the most of it. Might as well use it for your benefit. Like when your food goes bad, compost it. And when there's no more planes, build a pirate ship and sail the seas. Hey, you can do as you please. Oh, but only if you know you've got to improvise your way through change. Yeah. Now, even if you keep very still, be guaranteed that nothing else will. If you just sit around wondering what to do and you don't make change, it will happen to you. Yeah. So because we've got small change and big change and a bit of loose change, slow change and fast change and a wind change. We've got sea change and tree change and climate change. You change and me change and a key change. Hey, mind if that'll do? Yeah, because change is all the rage. Turn the page away from these strange, out-of-phase, deranged, crazy days. Because it's about time we engage, start rearranging our brains out of these old ways, behaving like we're insane. Well, we've got to step out of our cages, worrying about our wages or the Hong Kong stock exchanges. It's time to turn the pages. Don't feel ashamed, don't wear the blame. Just drain the main vein of the pain. Take to the stages and become agents of change. Thanks very much, folks. Thanks to everyone watching. Thanks, guys. If you want to hear it, someone was asking about the music, but yeah, we have some albums available at formidablevegetable.com if you'd like to check them out. Thanks so much. Back to you guys. Enjoy the book.
Absolutely. If this hasn't encouraged you all to read the book, don't know what will. Cool. So Linda's got a watch happening, but we thought we'd do the thank yous first, because as with any project, there's a huge list of people behind the scenes. So I'm going to hand over to Sue for that bit.
Oh, well, as the rep for Melliodora Publishing, of course, I get the best job because I just get the end product and have to, you know, arrange the printing. But so much hard work goes into that. Apart from Linda writing, of course, there's Richard who does the layout and the forensic checking over of the book. There's Elke and Meg who are in the office who do the admin, and communication. There's Beck, of course, who's the project management person. And there's Catherine, who did the fast read through for Beck. Maria Pena, of course, the illustrator, did an amazingly fast job because speed was of the essence in this book. We wanted it out yesterday. Then there's Christine in the warehouse over that will do the fulfilling of your books and the receiving of the books there. The tech people were for the various things, Osti, Oliver and Carly, and Dave, of course. What do I thank you for Dave? I've forgotten.
I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm not sure.
I didn't really
thanks
do
to
anything.
Dave anyway.
This is the book by from Melliodora Publishing that I had least to do with.
And Stuart from Focus Print. Also, given that we've got a couple of giveaways, and there was a little challenge to see who could come up with some specific things. Not that many of you entered, which was a little disappointing because anyway, we have two marvelous winners. Jackie Dodds from Parmelia, WA. Jackie, your book will be in the mail soon. And Jen Hall from Katoomba in New South Wales. So a bit of a spread there. Congratulations. You'll be soon reading the book, as I hope that most of you will, because as we've heard, this is a great read, especially as us Victorians are getting back into lockdown again. You know, book is the place to be. In bed of an evening, it's exciting. You read through those things that are a bit worrying, and there's always some sort of solution there. So thanks team. And I mustn't forget Charlie either. Thanks so much for your portrayal in the other version of an educative thing that is also part of Native people's education song.
Music.
And Linda, did you have your own thank yous to throw in there?
Oh, unmute. Here we go. Unmuted. There are a few people I would really like to thank. I would really like to thank Sarah Anthill. I hope you're listening, Sarah. Sarah was my writing buddy, and we would meet once a week in the early drafts of 470, and it was wonderful to have somebody to bounce ideas across who would tell me if something just didn't sit right. It was, yeah, thank you to Sarah. For a long time, we would meet and have coffee once a week and bounce ideas around. I'd also really like to thank my 4 beta readers who read the early versions, Jeddah, Rebecca, Nina, Donna, all women, all amazing readers. And they picked up a few things. They also argued between themselves about bits of it, which was really nice, because I thought if I can spark my beta readers to have debates about how they wanted the plot to go, that was a good thing. So I'd really like to thank them. And I would like to thank my amazing partner, Louis, who has stood by me through several years of writing and several years of waking up in the middle of the night and saying, do you know what I think Xana should do next? And what do you think? Because these people became real people and inhabited our household with us for a long time. I would also, I mean, there's people who you've already thanked, Maria Pena for her beautiful cover, David, Melliodora has been fantastic to work with. And I'd like to say again, thank you so much, Beck. You've been magnificent to work with as my contact point and editor in all of this. It's just been such a wonderful experience. Thank you.
And I'd have to say that with the 5 of us women here online today, Starhawk, Robyn, Beck, Linda, yes,
And a token mail.
and a
Oh, 2 token mail.
I just want to say,
So
I
thanks
just
so
want to
much,
say how
Starhawk, from coming all that way across, and Robyn too, and bringing those birds with you too that you had out there.
I just want to say how good it is to see you all. It just, it's really good. I was supposed to go to Australia in April and had a whole trip planned, and Robyn and I were going to teach together. I was going to go to the Australian Permaculture Convergence, and obviously that did not happen. But it's making me just realize how good it is to see you all, and how fortunate we've been to be able to actually connect in person in the past. And I hope that we can again.
We can in spirit, and we can see you. We're so fortunate.
Yes.
Our ancestors maybe did that better than we'll ever do it, but in the meantime, till we learn how to do it, we've got this.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks,
And thank you,
everyone.
Linda, for writing such a beautiful book.
Yep. And being so lovely to work with as well. It's been a bit of a dream. Normally, sort of expect to get a manuscript from someone. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of editing to actually get it to a form that was needed. But 470 needed hardly anything. It was, maybe 3 typos in the whole thing and a couple of conversations about things. But really, it was pretty much a finished manuscript when we got it, which made our job very, very smooth and easy. So, yeah, Linda, I'd love you to do your little launch ceremony, which I think involves something. If you've got a drink nearby, now is the time for you to all raise your drinks. Who's here?
I've got to do my formal launching here. Oh, turn this around here. This is Lily. Lily is my very first book customer, and I've promised I'm going to sign a book for her for the first, my very first buyer of a book. So, Lily,
you so much.
There you go.
I feel very privileged, and I can't wait to read the book. I'm not very
First customer.
Anyway, thank you very much, Linda. And I'm sure
I'm going to sign it. Here we go. Here is my signing it for Lily. Lily's actually making this book as a gift. So I am going to sign this book as a gift. To
my daughter.
It's gone. Make that happen back again, Louis, somehow.
Hey,
there it is. Who are we signing it for, Lily?
Helen King. This is my daughter-in-law, and I'm sure it's her birthday, and I just thought what a great present to give her. And I can't wait to read the book myself, actually. Congratulations, Linda.
Hey.
There you go, Lily.
Thank you so much. I feel so privileged.
There we go. First signed copy is gone.
I feel so
fantastic. Thanks, Linda. Well done.
We
have champagne too. Yeah.
Ours is a special champagne.
We've got kombucha as well here, but we actually have some alcoholic champagne. After today, I need alcoholic champagne.
Here's the
in the
toast
middle of
to
a
all
Sunday.
those online.
Yes,
that are going to be
thanks
happy
for
readers.
coming.
Yeah.
And thank you to all those people online. I wish we had the capacity COVID-wise to have a huge gathering, but in fact we still couldn't have had all of you because you're scattered all over the country and all over the world. So thank goodness for online.
Yeah, indeed.
Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.